22, Living Way of the Cross. Today, you will witness the story of Christ's passion. You will see how Jesus was betrayed and abandoned by his own friends. The crowd that had just days earlier welcomed him into Jerusalem will now demand that he be crucified. You will see the pain of his mother Mary and the compassion of Veronica and Simon of Cyrene. You will be witness to his death on the cross and rejoice in his resurrection. On behalf of the St. Patrick's School 8th grade class, we welcome you to the living way of the cross. The day before he suffered, he took bread in his sacred hands, and looking up to heaven, to you, his almighty Father, he gave you thanks and praise.
He broke the bread, gave it to his disciples, and said, "Take this, all of you, and eat it. This is my body, which will be given up for you."
In a similar way, when supper was ended, he took the chalice, and once more he gave you thanks and praise, gave the chalice to his disciples, and said, "Take this, all of you, and drink from it. This is the chalice of my blood, the blood of the new and eternal covenant, which will be poured out for you and for many, for the forgiveness of sins."
While Jesus and his friends enjoyed supper, Judas, one of the 12 disciples, slipped away.
Judas met up with the Sanhedrin, or the clerics of the Jewish church. The Sanhedrin were very angry with the popularity that Jesus had gained. They wanted to arrest Jesus and charge him with blasphemy.
Judas told the Sanhedrin where Jesus could be found, and in return for this information, Judas was given 30 silver coins.
Judas told the Sanhedrin that the person who he kissed on the cheek would be the man they wanted to arrest.
Then Jesus went out to the Garden of Gethsemane, and his disciples followed him. Jesus said to them, have your faith shaken tonight. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep will disperse. For one will betray me tonight, and one will deny me 3 times before the cock crows twice.
They began to recline in the warm evening. Jesus stayed there a while, and then withdrew from them about a stone's throw, where he fell to the ground and began to pray.
Finally, he returned to his sleeping friends and said, Could you not stay awake with me for even an hour? Be on guard, and pray that you may not be put to the test. For the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Look, my betrayer is at hand.
While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12 disciples, arrived accompanied by soldiers with swords and clubs. Judas had created a signal to let the soldiers know who Jesus was. Immediately, Judas went to Jesus and kissed him on the cheek.
How could a gesture, usually reserved for affection, be used in such a cruel way? Jesus was betrayed with a single kiss.
At daybreak, they brought Jesus to the praetorium. His disciples had scattered and fled in fear. They left him alone to face Pilate.
That lonely morning, Jesus stood before Pilate, unbowed, unbroken, and unafraid.
"Are you king of the Jews?" Pilate cried.
It is you who say so, came the reply.
We have no king but Caesar!
The crowd cried,
Crucify him! Crucify him!
Before Jesus, Pilate stood, bowed, broken, and afraid. He handed him over first to be scourged, hoping this would satisfy the crowd.
Then he washed his hands in the sight of the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of this man's blood. See to it yourselves." The soldiers, cold and knowing, whipped him, mocked him,
King of the Jews!
and crowned him with thorns.
After ridiculing and humiliating him, they led him away to where the cross awaited him.
Large and heavy, edges rough, weight unbearable, that cross had stood, waiting for the unfortunate, the criminal, the victim of the court.
Silently, Jesus shouldered it.
And the march began to Golgotha, the place of the skull. He struggled on painfully, quietly, and alone.
Here, on Calvary's way, not yet exhausted, still alert to every pain, still quickened by the lash, tripped on a stone perhaps, or stunned by a soldier's blow, Jesus falls.
On its feet, falls into the dust of the earth, and not one friendly hand is outstretched to help. Jesus falls alone.
He struggles to his feet and stands. And then he moves along.
Perhaps he found the strength to keep going because he caught a glimpse of a woman, his mother, her eyes just ahead in the crowd.
Mary stood there, silent and powerless. She mothered her son in his last moments, unable to touch, save with saddened eyes.
And Jesus, body torn, heart broken, fixed his eyes on his mother, comforted and comforting. No word is spoken, none is needed. Jesus meets his mother.
Strong and likely, Simon stood there, chance watcher of that strange procession on its way to Calvary. He was proud and from the country, young and insecure.
"Carry the cross," they said, word empowered by whips and lances and numbers. And he did. He shouldered the cross and followed behind Jesus.
Jesus continued, step by step, terrified and tired.
A young maid, Veronica, put fear aside for a moment and stepped from the shadows, and with her woman's veil, touched his face and bathed his sorrow to the tempo of her tears.
And he bequeathed to her, to us, the image not of a healthy, handsome, perfect face, but the disfigured face of a suffering servant, his signpost pointing to God's way.
He's had enough rest. The cross is thrust upon him again, brutally and still heavy with pain.
The shoulders ached, the head dripped blood, and knees began to buckle.
A whip is lashed. A hard word is spoken.
No!
A fist, a lance's blunted end, and Jesus falls again.
On the ground, that second time, the dust of discouragement covers the frame.
And yet, he moves on.
Old, worn women, weeping and waiting on each other, see Jesus struggle on. They see the terror of his eyes and the knotting of his body.
And yet, he sees their pain before his own, and he speaks, "Weep not for me, but for you and your children."
Pain has passed beneath the body and seared the edges of the soul. Weariness has broken the resistance of a tough, well-trained body and overwhelmed the man.
Jesus, reaching the limit of endurance, tired beyond tired, hanging on to consciousness, falls a third time.
Bits of flesh and matted hair, clots of hardened blood, drowned from city soil, are torn from his quivering frame as Jesus is stripped of his garments.
In a moment of utter shame, he finds himself naked and defenseless. Even the privacy of clothing is taken from him.
Is he going to be crucified now? Yeah.
Hands, which did such good, are now nailed into the cross.
Hands, which blessed and healed, are now hammered motionless.
And your feet, which walked on so many errands of mercy, are beaten into paralysis.
And then the cross is hurled aloft, bannered in the sky, flaunted in the face of God.
Jesus is crucified. Hanging there, somewhere between heaven and earth, you speak the unspeakable.
Father, forgive, they know not what they do.
Then you face one final, terrible temptation, as your struggle is now with the Father.
The Father, whom you felt so attached to as Son. The Father, who had proclaimed to be so merciful and good. That same Father now seems to have abandoned you completely. You are on the verge of suffering the hell of God's absence as you cry out.
Now you are totally empty before the Father, nothing left to lay hold of. By human standards, you have failed, but somehow you continue to trust, and you show us where our hope and security lies as you speak your last words.
Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. It is finished.
Okay, I told them they were going to make me cry. 8th grade, great job. This has been a great group of kids to work with. I'm just really super proud of them. I also want to recognize our singers. We have 6th and 7th grade singers. Singers, please stand up. Very nicely done, you all. Thank you. Okay, in the very back, which their job is actually very difficult because they are just going based off of cues and sounds and the best notes that I could give them. Lucy and Sam, would you come back? Would you come out? They wear our lights. These two girls are 7th graders. And now they had very strict instructions that I didn't want to see them. I didn't want to hear them. But now I want to see you 7th grade up in the choir walk doing our sound effects. I have a few other people I want to thank, and I'll apologize now if I overlook anybody, but Rebecca Carmack, thank you so much for the wonderful piano playing for us. And I have one of our teacher assistants who agreed to help us with our singers. So Melissa Strong is on this side. Thank you for doing our programs. Miss Corey Bowen, at the last minute, I kind of threw Corey in. She volunteered and I said, yes, I will take your help. Corey was a big help today as my runner. I have some siblings of our 8th graders and 4th and 5th graders who were passing out our programs. Thank you. Thank you for being here to record for us, and then he will be back tomorrow evening to do a live stream for us, so greatly appreciate it. And I have a wonderful middle school team that I get to work with, and they were very gracious when I needed schedule changes, borrowing time from a different class period other than when these kids have religion. So thank you very much for your questions. It's been 2 years since we've done this. We haven't done this the last 2 years. I had one, 2 years ago I had a group ready to go. They were ready to start, and that's when we had to shut down for the pandemic. So these kids were excited and they knew we were going to get to do this. It's honestly one of the first things, right, in grade that you ask me when you come in as 8th graders about living away. I was so thrilled, as were they, that we could be able to do this year. Every year, you think after so many years of doing this, you really can't change anything, but I've always told them they have better ideas than I do. And so we did. We changed some things up again even this year. So thank you again, 8th grade, 7th grade, 6th grade, for all of us. For the first time this year, we are actually actually going to be doing this an evening performance. It's the first time we've done it, so we will be back here tomorrow evening at 6:30 on Good Friday, and then after the performance, there will be the opportunity for veneration of the cross. If you know anybody who couldn't come today and would like to come, please, we encourage anyone to come back tomorrow evening or to come here and see it. Thank you all for coming. We really appreciate you being here. And on behalf of all of our 8th graders and the middle school team, we want to wish you all a very happy Easter. Thank you.
Thank you. Did a great job.